That looks good. What's that?
It's wine unknown. Welcome to Wine Unknown. I'm your host. My name is Bryant Fennell, also known as Bright Guy, and I'm a wine specialist. What does that even mean? Well, it means that I know a lot of information about wine, and I want to share that along with my passion with you guys. So no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter if it's the beginning, the middle, well, let's face it, there's no such thing as the end. This is the show for you.
So last week we covered Syrah or Shiraz, depending on where you're at in the world. But no matter what, the grape is the grape. The wines are the wines. They're all fantastic. Doesn't matter, right? So this week we're going to close out the noble grapes with the king of red grapes, hailing out of Napa. Whatever, out of California, Napa Valley. We're going to dive into Cabernet Sauvignon. Get ready, get loose, and other places that it's from. That's outside of Napa. All right, let's go. Cabernet Sauvignon. Its origin it's up for grabs. It's up for grabs. Cause honestly, the French will tell you that its birthplace is there in Bordeaux, but all of these grape varietals could not have started in French or Bordeaux. That's crazy. The more and more that I'm sitting here talking to you guys about it, it makes it just so one-sided, and that just doesn't seem that does not sit right with my soul. Because all wine can't come from this one place of origin. That just doesn't make sense. A winemaking style, yes, I can understand that, but I'm just going off on a rant early in this episode. So we'll stop that, but we will talk about the king of grape varietals that hails here in the US of A. And that's the Cabernet Sauvignon, which they would sit there and say that its native place is Bordeaux. But where did it make its name? Outside of Bordeaux. All right, so let's first of all rewind this, okay? So Cabernet Sauvignon, it's this red grape, and you would hardly see it as a rosé. But you can see it as a rosé because there's things that I've had. There are rosés that I've had from South Africa, but you don't see too many of those on the market, right? Yeah, you just don't see too many rosés of Cabernet Sauvignon on the market in any retail shop. But if you do, you should try it out because it's really fruit forward. It's really good and it's dry. It's just good. It's just good. It's just good. It's just good. That's all I'm going to say about that. But outside of that, this is really dry grape. It's just this, it's like the Incredible Hulk of grapes, I guess you would say. It's just beefed up, angry with all of this dryness. It's not sweet at all. It's something you don't want to come across unless you know what you're coming across. If you're used to drinking sweet wines, this is not the gateway grape varietal or wine for you, because we're talking about robust, astringent, just the driest of dry, just to clear your palate. If you thought that it's just eating sand, it's that kind of grape variety, or I should say, let me humble myself, it can be like that. It's not always like that. outside of that, it's still gonna have it's it could have mild, like if you get some sand on your tongue or whatever, it could be like that. But for the most part, yo, it's dry. It's dry. A lot of people don't like it. Like a lot of people don't like it unless it's like a juicy one. Like I guess you would say like what's working now is Josh because they have some fruit forwardness to it, but they source their grapes from different places in California. It's not just like a specific area, so they can balance it. But we'll get into that a whole lot later as well. I know I keep saying that, but you got to stay tuned in order to get into the meat and bones of this wine business industry, all that kind of jazz, or media, whatever people want to call it, content. But yeah, so for the most part, if you're grabbing a Cabernet Sauvignon, it's 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 not going to be a juice bomb. It's going to be really drying where you're going to sit there and be doing something like it doesn't sound good on air or anything like that, but it's going to be like that, like mouth sucking, trying to like grasp for salvation, right? Like we're in church, oh, but no, like salivate, like saliva. There we go. That's the word that I'm looking for. Saliva. You're going to be looking for that the entire time you're drinking. And that could be great depending on your experience. So I like to just break that up into like where you're getting your Cabernet Sauvignons from, right? So the first and foremost, of course, Napa Valley. We gotta do that. Napa Valley it's expensive wines for the reason that they won a blind tasting in France, the blind tasting in Paris, or back way when, before we were born, and since then they all just taken off. Those are the cliff notes. You can look them up yourself. That's what you can do. If you want to learn more about the Judgment of Paris, you can just look that up. So after that, then like more and more people started to grow grapes in Napa Valley, but who do we know? Robert Mondavi has taken over all of that. Taken over all of that, and he has so many different lines. Most of you don't know, but an expression of his or something that he does distribute is a Woodbridge. But then he does have the Vent Now new label with Robert Mondavi's private selection. Like he has a whole lot of land, or they have a whole lot of land, and he actually put a lot of people in places like Paul Hobbs started out at Robert Mondavi's winery. So there are a lot of winemakers that came through that winery vineyard to start their own career. So, like that's someone that's on the Mount Rushmore of, I guess you would say, what is that? US winemakers. So these wines are really expensive because the land costs a lot now, whatever. Like it's a whole lot, but Napa Valley wines cost a lot. Not just Robert Mondavi, but Napa Valley. The whole AVA cost a whole lot just to even put the name on it. But the interesting thing is, the older the wine is, the better they get. So if you buy them young and you have the discipline of holding on to that bottle, like 20 years later, it's going to taste fantastic. That's how that kind of works, unless you are fortunate enough to buy an older version or an older vintage of the bottle in the present day, then it costs a lot, but it's good. Like, so that's kind of like the trade-off with how that whole thing played off. But some of the flavor profiles you'll get from it is just like it's still going to be dark fruit. You're expecting like that dark cherry, that blackberry, black currant. You're expecting all those kind of things. Put baking spices, some vanilla, etc., etc. You might get some mushroom depending on how old the wine is, but then that's expecting like that's later down the line. Like the older the wines are, the better they get, and the more that those like blackberry and baking spices flavors they start to age, so they're not as prevalent, or they might become like dried blackberry, and they might become like more so like subtle baking spices. They start to play the back road in that, and that's kind of what you're spending for, I guess you would say, more or less. But I'm not a Napa guy. Like Napa Reds, Napa Whites, they aren't my cup of tea, so I could be kind of biased. I don't know. Like, I have come across good Napa wines. I have come across bad Napa wines, but they're just not for me in my palate. So I don't know, take anything I say in this subject with a grain of salt. Because I could be biased. I could be biased. But some of the things that they will give you are kind of just like these red fruits, these black fruits, like red currants as well. Like they're all over the place. It's all over the place, depending on where it's from. They're great wines. It just depends on what you're going for. If you like a lot of oak, then this might be for you. If not, then it might not be for you. There are other places that have Cabernet Sauvignon, and we'll dive into those a little bit later. But as of right now, food pairings, right? What can you have with Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa, right? You like, for the most part, everybody's trying to, and here in America, everybody's trying to impress somebody. So if you're trying to impress your boss or anything like that, this is the kind of wine you want to get. But of course, you don't want to get any cheap Cabernet Sauvignon, but it might be amazing. No, you're looking for a price tag. So you're willing to spend whatever, like a brand like Silver Oak, which is a good wine. But like, do I feel like spending $170 on a bottle? All right, cool. It's for my boss. Yeah, they'll appreciate it. But your boss probably does not know anything about wine. They just know brands and labels just like you do. So you can always just not do that and just get them a really good cap for like $20 in Washington. That's from Washington State, Like, it's you should just talk to your local wine merchant or wine specialist or whatever they want to call themselves within whatever. You should talk to them because they will be able to help you a whole lot more out of choosing a wine from Italy like a Super Tuscan or a Cabernet Sauvignon out of Chile, because they're vastly different than the Napa style and within their own respects. So when you're looking at a Super Tuscan from Italy, first of all, Italy is so strict in their laws and their rules because they believe like, yo, this is us. This is us. You've had some winemakers just go out of the line and was like, I don't want to do it that way. I want to create. Like, let the creators create, and you know I'm all for that. Like, I love let the creators create. So they went all the way within the law to demote their vineyards and everything to like non-essential. Like, you guys are not important. And their wine still showed through when they introduced these blends. Most people will say like Bordeaux blends, but it's international grape blends. So it's not just like anything that you can grab from France. No, they're using anything that's identifiable that makes sense. And a lot of them that work to a great degree to push their agenda forward are the grandfathers of winemaking. And it's crazy. We'll jump into that later, of course, when we get into Italy. Like, it's so many stories that I just have to save, because I want to keep you guys listening, but this is just like to get you guys primed. But yes, so they're like them introducing the Cabernet Sauvignon grape varietal to their Sangiovese like blend changed everything for the Italian wine market. Such a boom, a crazy boom that it paired really well with their foods. Like every dish, we're talking about antipastis, where you're getting more so just like prosciutto and melon, right? So the sweet melon and the salty prosciutto enhances the fruit and acidity within the wines. That's right there. That changes everything, because we're just talking about the starters. If you go along as far as course by course, it just only brings out more and more of one another. It's beautiful. You should try it yourself. Cabernet Sauvignon is so pure, so rich, so bold and strong. It's so much to say about it. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you did. Hopefully you learned something about Cabernet Sauvignon. But it's not limited to just because. Did you know they're planting Cabernet Sauvignon in China? It's been going on for a while. They're cultivating it. It's going to come out delicious from what I hear. I don't know. Sources. It's just sources. But, yep, so that's that. Another episode of Wine Unknown. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you're willing to, share, subscribe, or do whatever those people ask you to do. I don't know. I'm still growing. I'm still having fun with it. And I just like talking about these things. So, that's it. My name is Bryant Fennell, also known as Bright Guy. You can follow me wherever you want on your DSPs, all that good stuff. Alright, hopefully you had a good time listening, and cheers. Hopefully you learned something. See you in a couple weeks. Bye. Oh snap, wait, no, before I say bye, this was the bye to the noble grapes. Oh, where do we go from here? Ooh, now we get into the juicy stuff. The actual regions, the stories. Oh man, this is good evolution. I look forward to it, and ciao.